Delhi. Before joining NCERT, he was in the Department of Linguistics and Contemporary English at IFLU Lucknow campus. He has four books and numerous research papers. He has research interest in pragmatics and English language education. We are delighted to have you with us, sir, and we look forward to an enriching session. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Vidhi, for generous introduction. I hope I am audible.
Yes, sir, you are.
In the beginning, I would like to appreciate Dr. Ganga Mehto for coordinating such a wonderful program. And I would extend my all appreciation for Vidhi for conducting this program so successfully and so smartly.
Thank you,
It
sir.
was really a very generous introduction. Uh, Today, I have come with a very interesting topic with you. Uh, in fact, certain terms are there, which I would like to elaborate and introduce here. It is very important for all the students of English language teaching that they should be acquainted with these basic concepts. Uh, let's understand what's the status of English in our country. English enjoys the status of associate official language in our country, and Hindi, for all practical purposes, is the official language. So it has been understood that English plays a very important role in functioning as a lingua franca when it comes to cross-cultural communication and cross-linguistic communication in our country. Due to this reason only, many institutes like Regional Institutes of English and the English and Foreign Languages University have been established so that the education of English language can be properly disseminated and uh, a common language, a common medium of communication across country should be developed. uh, so that is the main purpose. However, there are certain critics who criticize the function of English and they find it a killing language. They are of the opinion that English is actually killing Indian languages. So, in my opinion, this is not the case because English has become an asset to our country. If you consider the role of English in the development of country, you can find every year thousands and lakhs of graduates from our country go to Anglophonic countries where they play a very important role and bring very sought after dollars and pounds to our country, right? So, in technical education and in connecting to the global education, English has played a very important role. And recognizing this, even National Education Policy 2020 also has not ignored the importance of English and it still focuses on quality education of English language in our country. Having said that, uh, the aspiring middle class uh, wants to climb the ladders of success. Due to that reason, there is a very high motivation among guardians about sending their wards to English medium schools. But I'm sorry to say, not many schools are motivated enough to invest in the training of their teachers. Low paid teachers who hardly get any training, even orientation in language education, and they teach in these schools. So at this point, I would like to say that private schools particularly, they should develop a kind of framework and they should develop a kind of mechanism so that the teachers of their school can get quality training and they should be able to transact education in a proper way. Uh, those who have taught in engineering colleges and management institutes, they are very much aware of this situation. Even after 14 years of education at a school, many students reach universities raw, where in most of the technical institutes, medium of instruction is English. So you see, engineering colleges and management colleges are still good recruiters of English teachers due to this reason only. Because you see, raw students reach there, and even at university level, they require classes in English language. Having said that, you see, what are the factors that affect acquisition of any language for that purpose, not just English? What are the main factors that affect language learning? Uh, I have been told that you have already discussed something about the factors that are responsible uh, for language education and that affect language education directly or indirectly. Uh, so I won't reiterate them, but in a different way, I would like to interpret them. You see, have you heard the name of Stephen Krashen? He was an American linguist actually. And currently he is a professor emeritus in Southern California University in the Department of Education actually. He invested a lot of time and researched the area of language education, and he has come up with a very comprehensive theory of language learning. Here I would request you to be ready with your pen and paper because you should note down the key terms particularly that I am going to speak. So Krashen gave a comprehensive theory of language education and he talked about six hypotheses. So they are popularized six hypotheses of Krashen or Krashen six hypotheses. So actually these hypotheses are his broad outlines or rather proposals or rather systematic observations about language education. And Krashen says uh, that learning is different from acquisition. He explained the difference between learning and acquisition in his acquisition learning hypothesis. So, what is the first hypothesis? The first hypothesis is acquisition learning hypothesis. We acquire our first language. Even in first language also, when we go to school, we formally learn certain things about our first language. So acquisition is actually a subconscious process. You pick subconsciously certain parts of language. You subconsciously learn socio-pragmatic rules of the use of language. And then you become fluent in your language and start using it in different socio-pragmatic situations. So that is acquisition. What is acquisition? Acquisition is a painless subconscious process in which you pick language from social exposure. Uh, you get exposure of language in society and you automatically pick that. You do not need to invest efforts or take pains of learning it. So that is acquisition. On the other hand, learning is a conscious process. It requires certain discipline, certain efforts, certain planning, tools and techniques, methods and approaches. So, learning and acquisition both are complementary, both complement each other. I shouldn't say English is just about learning and your mother tongue Hindi is just about acquisition. Not exactly like that. In fact, language learning involves both acquisition and learning. You acquire certain parts of language from society, from social exposure, and you learn certain rules through formal education. Here, you should also note down acquisition is responsible for fluency and learning is responsible for accuracy. So, when you learn a language, you get accuracy in your language. Your language becomes grammatically, phonetically refined. But just by learning rules, you can't get fluency. Fluency is achieved in the best way when you get exposure of language and you get opportunity of acquiring it, right? So acquisition is responsible for fluency, while learning is responsible for accuracy in your language use. Therefore, a good schooling system should provide opportunities for both, for acquisition as well as for learning. How can you provide opportunities for acquisition? Opportunities for acquisition of language can be provided by creating language rich environment, by using audio visuals, by giving more exposure to language in direct interaction, by using wallpapers, reading materials, and audio-visual materials. By integrating all these things, you give direct exposure to language uh, for acquiring, effortlessly wherever they move, other students move in the school campus, they uh, get input and they acquire certain things without investing any conscious efforts. On the other hand, learning opportunities are certainly in focus in schools. Students are taught rules. They have to do certain exercises, complete their homework. Lesson plannings are done for that purpose. What uh, curricular goal you want to achieve and what skills are in focus. According to that, you teach your students in your class. Therefore, uh, in conclusion, we can say that a good school is that creates opportunities, good opportunities for both acquisition as well as learning. As acquisition and learning both are complementary to each other, whereas acquisition is responsible for cultivating fluency in students, learning is responsible for enhancing their accuracy in the use of language. I hope this particular hypothesis is clear. Krashen's first hypothesis, that is acquisition learning hypothesis, is clear, and I think you could connect how both opportunities of acquisition and learning can be best created at a school. Good. Now, motivated by your appreciation, I think I should move to the next point now. Uh, Next is monitor hypothesis. Monitor hypothesis. MONITOR, monitor hypothesis. You see, in this hypothesis, Krashen says that a conscious, active learner develops a certain type of monitor in his mind. That monitor functions like an editor that corrects errors, say autocorrect errors. For example, when you produce language, spoken or written, sometimes due to your lax attitude, due to tiredness or various physio psychological reasons, you many times commit mistakes, you make mistakes. But on the second reading, or just after uttering the sentence, you understand where you made a mistake and you automatically correct it. So, this auto correction happens because you know the rule. Uh, this is actually monitor. And how is monitor built in your mind? Monitor is the result of learning, not acquisition. Because when you learn rules consciously, you build a certain type of monitor in your mind that is responsible for accuracy. And when you produce language, written or spoken, this monitor gets activated and that keeps correcting your language use, your language production, alongside your language use when you speak or write, or even when you make mistake, it enables you to auto correct your mistakes. So this is the second hypothesis, that is monitor hypothesis, right? So here I would like to bring two opinions that are generally popular about school education. One school of English teacher is there that says there's no need of teaching grammar, and the other school says actually grammar teaching is the only teaching. There's no other teaching possible without grammar. In fact, those who insist on not teaching grammar, they are of the opinion that just by exposure of language and consuming a lot of language, we imbibe a sense of grammar and we do not essentially need to learn the rules of grammar. Partially, they are correct. Those who say grammar is very important, in fact, they stress the importance of developing a strong monitor. They are in the favor of accuracy more than fluency. I think they are also partially correct. Therefore, a middle path is required here. Uh, Perhaps just learning grammar rules won't help, or just exposure of language will not help, particularly when we learn English as a second language or as a foreign language. Because our exposure, howsoever great it may be, is still limited. And we are raised with some other language and then we move to English. English always comes as a second language in our country. Therefore, good understanding of grammar is as important as nice exposure and cultivation of fluency. So, building monitor is required. Conscious learning of grammar rules, phonetics rules required for correct production of language. I hope you got this idea. Here in this definition, I used a term commit a mistake, made a mistake. I would draw your attention to this particular point. In fact, when we say he committed a mistake or commit a mistake, this shows our very strong or negative attitude towards mistakes, right? In fact, as a teachers of language, we should develop some kind of tolerance towards students' mistakes, because mistakes are a proof that students are still learning. As Chomsky said that they are developmental errors. They indicate that the students are still developing if they are making mistakes, even errors. So let's understand the difference between a mistake and an error. What is a mistake and what is an error? In fact, when you analyze this word mistake, it means it is a mistake. It means a mistake is made due to various physio-psychological reasons. For example, a person is tired or in a hurry or emotionally disturbed, and due to carelessness or sleep or lethargy, made a mistake. Mistakes can be auto-corrected. It means after making a mistake, the speaker understands that a mistake has been made, and the speaker can correct it by himself, herself, by themselves, right? But this is not true about error. An error happens due to ignorance of rule. When you do not know the rule, you made an error, and an error cannot be auto corrected. It always requires intervention of the more knowledgeable, right? The teacher. Therefore, this is the difference between mistake and error. Mistake, a mistake is a proof that monitor is working and certain system has been learned, right? That's why autocorrection is possible. But an error happens when there is total ignorance about rule, and this requires intervention of the more knowledgeable, that is teacher or parent or the more knowledgeable person. I hope this idea you could understand. So far, I have completed. Two hypotheses, acquisition learning hypothesis. I distinguished between what is between acquisition and learning. I told you that acquisition is a subconscious process. It happens automatically, language learned automatically from social interaction and exposure. Learning, on the other hand, is a conscious process. It requires planning, conscious efforts, and it is a bit painful also. Then I also talked about monitor hypothesis, how learned system functions as a monitor or editor, and how language production is auto-corrected um, by this monitor that is built due to learning in your mind. Then I also explained the difference between a mistake and an error. I hope this much is clear. Should I move ahead? Okay, good. Now, the next point is critical period hypothesis. What is critical period hypothesis? Krashen is of the opinion, I shouldn't say Krashen is of the opinion, because you see this critical period hypothesis, many people talked about this. Krashen only developed a comprehensive model of language learning. So Krashen here gives quite much importance to critical period hypothesis. What is critical period hypothesis? According to this hypothesis, language is best learnt at a younger age. And as learners mature in their age, they become slow in language learning. Therefore, it is easier to teach younger learners. For younger learners, it is easy to acquire language, to learn a language in a better way. Whereas for those who have got age maturity, it is comparatively more difficult. In fact, some researchers went to this point. A student doesn't acquire even one language by the time he or she reaches puberty, then it becomes extremely difficult for them to learn any language whatsoever. Therefore, at a younger age, students should be given proper exposure and opportunities of language learning, and they should master at least one language at a very young age. That is critical period hypothesis. So I repeat, critical period hypothesis says that language is best learned at a young age than at mature age. The students are best, learners are best equipped to learn a language before they reach puberty, that is around 12 years of age. Under 12 years of age, students learn language in a better way. Therefore, the younger the learner, the better equipped the learner is for acquiring a language, learning a language. And those learners who get an opportunity of learning a language at an early age, they get near native competence quite easily. Now, I dropped a new term, that is near native competence. You see, near native fluency. Uh, it is extremely difficult to the verge of even impossibility to acquire native proficiency in a language for a foreign language learner or for a second language learner. The best target that we can achieve is the near native proficiency. We can acquire the near native proficiency. Those who acquire near native proficiency are actually as good as the native speakers. They develop a sense of language. They have an intuitive knowledge, that cultivate intuitive knowledge of not only language, its grammar and phonetics, but also its socio-pragmatics, what to say, whom to say, what not to say, how to say, right? Here, I must introduce one more new concept also. You should note down if you like. That is Chomsky. Have you heard the name of Chomsky? Chomsky, a great American linguist. came up with the theory of language acquisition device. And he said that a second language is also learned the same way as first language, and learners are little scientists. If they get exposure to language, they automatically process language and they form their own rules. They test their rules and they correct them also. And by revising, by trial and error, by imitating their seniors, they learn language. So this is cognitivist theory of language learning of Chomsky. But there came another linguist, Delheim. Delheim is of the opinion. He says that just by learning structures, just by acquiring vocabulary and grammar, one cannot become a master of a language. One cannot become a proficient user of language because besides grammar, besides vocabulary, one needs certain knowledge of socio-pragmatics of the use of that language. For instance, if a learner knows the words and the rules of grammar, so structuralists will say, even cognitivists say that such a learner will be able to use language. But Delheim is of the opinion no, despite knowing words and grammar rules, the student will not be able to use language perfectly. Reason being, language is not just about words and grammar, it is about society because language doesn't exist in isolation, it has social norms attached to it. Just what to say is not important. How to say, where to say, how not to say, whom to say, in which format to say, that is also quite important. So this is what he called socio-linguistic competence or communicative competence, Delheim's concept of communicative competence. So one achieves communicative competence when one gets sufficient social exposure also. Therefore, I would like to propose here that as teachers of English language or as teachers of the English language, we should also focus on socio-linguistic competence of our learners. They should have sufficient understanding of society and how communication functions in a particular society, what are pragmatic and social rules about communication. Uh, so this is also quite important. I hope I am clear here. You could understand Delheim's communicative competence uh, and how communicative competence is quite important. It is as important as grammatical competence, as Chomsky emphasizes. You also understood what is monitor hypothesis, then you also understood what is critical period hypothesis. Uh, critical period, what is critical period for language learning? Those who know, they should just thumbs up. What is exact age critical period? That is age of puberty, that is around 12 years of age. So language is best learned for 12 years of age. The younger the learner is, the better the learning of a language. Okay, great. I think I should move ahead. So after this, there is affective filter hypothesis, and this is very important, in fact, uh, point that I'm going to make here. Affective filter, you should note down affective filter hypothesis. AFFECTIVE. This is not effective, this is affective. Affective filter hypothesis. And this is a bit difficult also, so your better attention is required, and I'll try to elaborate also so that each and everyone understands affective filter. And in fact, many of the teachers are culprits also. They will be caught here. And you should reflect your own role as well, whether you resolve affective filter or create affective filter for your students. So Krashen is of the opinion that affective filter plays a very important role in language learning. Affective filter is actually a psychological filter, a psychological filter that is created by fears, doubts, inhibitions, and attitudes in the mind of your learners. So, the higher the affective filter is, the lower is the learning. It means if the affective filter is high, learning is less. And what is affective filter made of? It is made of fear, certain inhibitions, attitudes, insecurities, hesitations. So this is affective filter made of. And if this affective filter is high, it means if these factors are high, then learning is low. It means that is not the best environment for language learning. Then what is the role of teachers? Our primary role as a teacher is to lower the affective filter. In fact, when we reach the class, our first effort should be to lower the affective filter of the class so that they become receptive, so that they become better learners. Their mental windows are open so that some knowledge reaches there and they store certain information. So actually, how is affective filter built? See, if an English teacher is very strict, वैसे भी इंग्लिश टीचर रहते ही हैं, मतलब थोड़ा स्ट्रिक्ट ही रहते हैं. Certain English teachers reach the class as if they have very chronic pain in their stomach. They have a certain, a frown on their face automatically. And in suburban areas and rural areas, English teachers carry some kind of self-importance. So you just see an English teacher from a distance and you'll recognize perhaps he is an English teacher or she is an English teacher. With this attitude, when they reach the class, they try to pour forth their self-omniscience on the upon the boggled brains of confused students. And they somehow uh, derive some kind of pleasure and pamper their ego and self-omniscience they proclaim there. And this is how class goes on, and that creates a very strong affective filter in your student's mind. One reason. Second reason, you see, not just teachers, for this error I would say, even principals or management are responsible. In very so-called very good schools, what will happen, the teacher in the class and the principal is on the round, always on the round. The principal will take liberty of barging into the class, any class, and scolding the teacher and the students in the presence of the students, and it is quite mortifying. For what? The students are making noise. There is some noise in the class. Or a very strict teacher gives punishment to students for making a mistake or not answering a question properly. They sometimes make them stand on the benches or in the last row or in front of the class. कुल मिलाकर के public humiliation is the target. So this public humiliation affects their emotions and their psychological condition in a very negative way. And then now onwards, they won't take risk of answering your questions. They became dumb learners. In fact, they developed a very high filter, particularly in your class. So some teachers say, बेटा ये इंग्लिश है, सबके बस की बात नहीं है, बहुत कठिन भाषा है. Hmm. This type of sentences also demotivate the students because they somehow get convinced that English is not their cup of tea. It is extremely difficult language and they won't be able to learn it. Some teachers have an attitude of giving 0 marks without writing any comment. Cut, 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 0, 0, 0, 0. Continuously in 3, 4 tests, if they get 0, if your learner gets 0, they get totally demotivated. And their affective filter is high. They conclude English is not my cup of tea. And finally, they drop from your class. So these are all the reasons, in fact, that make affective filter of students high. Here, I would like to give you some tips. What can you do to lower the affective filter of your students and to make your class more conducive, more receptive, and how can your learners learn in a free and secure environment and they can perform better. First, I do not agree with this opinion that you can conduct a silent language class. So do not emphasize too much on strict discipline. Is it possible to teach somebody dance without sound of anklets? Is it possible to teach someone singing without any sound of singing or alap? Similarly, language cannot be taught without noise. If an English language class is totally silent class, it means no learning is taking place there. Right? No learning is taking place there because language is about speaking and listening. If a total silent class is sitting and too strict discipline you have imposed, then certainly you are not teaching them. Therefore, it is important that your class discipline should be a little relaxed. Students should be given opportunity of answering your questions, raising their inquiries, or even giving their opinions. And you can even allow them to be a little naughty because language is about social interaction and social interactions have not strict discipline of the class. They are about society. Right? So this is again very important. School management should also consider this thing. They should not just see through the peephole of the class and see whether the students are silent or not, because silence means nothing. All dumbos are sitting inside if a very silent class is there, right? Language is about skill building, is about skill cultivation in speaking and listening, and speaking cannot be taught without permission to speak. Therefore, a language class should be a murmuring class. There should be some talk, there should be some language use, there should be a democratic environment, there should be giggles and smiles, and giggles and smiles should not be tolerated just, they should be promoted, I think. So your student should have confidence. And then it is again important, you should never tell your students that English is a very difficult language. You should always give them confidence that English is a very easy language and anybody can learn it. Right? Because when you give them confidence, they can learn it, only then they will learn it, because we get self-hypnotized. Right? एक चीज़ यहाँ पे मैं आपको बताना चाहूँगा, you can conduct a test also if you want to conduct a social experiment for that purpose. You see, you ask a student who had just written board examination a week back, you ask them what was your syllabus. The 90% holder will not be able to tell you the syllabus properly. Why it happens? Just a week back they wrote their examination and they do not remember the syllabus. The next year if you ask them, they'll take time in even recalling the names of their papers, right? It means all knowledge that they acquired so painfully is erased from their mental chip. They are clean slate now. Why it happens? It happens due to a very interesting psychological reason. When they study, they tell their mind, see, you have to remember this information because examination is in Feb. So their mind saves the information in a local chip, a local memory, right? The day they write their exam, work is done, their mind erases the information. Self hypnotism happens actually, right? So you should also tell your students the importance of language and the importance of lesson in one or two sentences, and you should also tell them that the information that you are going to share with them is actually important for their life, not just the test that they are going to write after 2 days. Otherwise, it will get erased from their mind. So, speaking a sentence about the importance of a lesson, that it is important for life, telling them that this lesson is interesting and easy, and also creating all safe environment where people can make mistakes safely and without getting any punishment or reprimand from a teacher. So in such a class, better learning will take place. I think you agree with me. This is about affective filter. So a teacher should always try to lower the affective filter. Only then good learning will take place. Here I would also like to mention one thing. You see, there is one particular method of language teaching, that is Desuggestopedia. Have you heard the name of Desuggestopedia or Suggestopedia? Those who have, please thumbs up. Okay, a few people have heard the name of this method, Desuggestopedia and Suggestopedia. Actually, Suggestopedia or Desuggestopedia, both the names are of single method only, of one method only. They Suggestopedia focuses on psychological conditioning of students. The students, in all words, actions, and attitudes and interaction of the teacher, they are told in all words in detail that this language is interesting, this is funny, this is easy. The culture associated with this language is also interesting. The teacher is also interesting, book is also interesting. Everything is very interesting and easy and enjoyable. As a result, what happens? Their affective filter becomes low. Negatives are desuggested and positives about language are suggested. And this is how psychological conditioning of your learners is done so that they become more receptive. This is about actually affective filter hypothesis. As teachers of English, we understand the importance and we do not take all opportunity of tightening our ego at the cost of the students by insulting them. I think we can help a lot our learners, and we can be very effective and very good teachers in our class. I'm sorry, means I sometimes I take liberty of speaking certain sentences. I know all of you are very wonderful teachers. Due to this motivation only, you have joined this important course. Otherwise, not many people join this course. Once they become a teacher, they know everything already. But since you are learning, you are already a positive and highly motivated teachers. Thank you so much. So I hope you understood the importance of affective filter and what teachers can do about lowering affective filter so that a better teaching learning environment can be created. I hope you got it. Okay, very good. Now the most important part. In fact, Krashen's hypothesis many times known by this particular single point only, that is input hypothesis. Write down please, input hypothesis. Krashen is of the opinion that a comprehensive input should be given to your students. If you do not give a comprehensive input, the best learning will not take place. What is comprehensive input? Comprehensive input is the input that is slightly beyond the current level of the students. You see, the teachers pass their master's degree, then they do their B.Ed, might do PhD even, and then they reach the class to teach class 3 students. Now, there is a big difference between the cognitive level of the teacher and the student, and of course, a very big gap between the linguistic ability of the teacher and the taught. Now, if the teacher doesn't understand the condition of the students and keeps speaking from the platform of a highly ornate scholar, in that case, your students won't learn anything because your input is not comprehensive input. You are just pouring forth your omniscience upon the boggled brains of the students, and they are not getting even a single word. You pamper your ego, you deliver a lecture, and you come out with your collar high. But I am sorry to say your learners got nothing because your input was not comprehensive input. So, what can we do to make comprehensive input? You see, your students, not just your students, I mean, anybody interprets language in relation to the experience of the world that they have. Your students have some limited experience of the world. They have limited number of concepts in their mind. And if you talk about rocket science to them and use terminology related to rocket science or atomic fusion and fission, to a student who knows only a little piece of the world, their exposure of the world is limited, they'll not be able to interpret your input because their experience with the world is very limited, their concepts are very limited, their linguistic ability is very limited. Therefore, your input will not be processed and no learning will take place. So you should design your lessons, pitch your language and delivery, your pace, your choice of words, your stories, your examples, your concepts around the current level of the learners, around the current level, their cognitive level, their social experience, their understanding of the world. If, say, they know about agriculture, about wheat and crop, about how it is produced, then perhaps you can take them to how different things are made with those crops, how food is processed, because things are somehow related, and this knowledge requires that basic knowledge. So experience of the world is one thing. Second thing is experience of language. Say your students have a vocabulary of around 600 words at the time. General service vocabulary is of 3000 words. I would advise you should go and Google 3000 words of general service vocabulary. In most of the schools at the preparatory stage, they focus mainly on the service vocabulary, so that it goes with the help of these 3000 words. You can say anything, and communication is possible, good communication is possible. So main focus is on this. Now, the lessons that you design or the language that you use in your interaction, according to your learners, the size of the sentence, the size of your phrases, the pace of speech, the vocabulary that you use should be slightly beyond their current level. That is indicated as I plus 1, where I is the current level of learners and plus 1 is the slightly beyond input that you are giving them, right? It means 90% of the vocabulary and the experiences that are there in the lesson, they should be shared, they should already know. 10% or maybe 5% new vocabulary or new experiences can be shared with them. In this way, their information, their understanding of the world, their worldview, and their language will be slowly built, and less effort will be required on the part of the learners as well as of the teachers. This is input hypothesis. Uh, I want to ask you a few questions to clarify whether you have understood input hypothesis. Uh, if a teacher uses very hi-fi ornate literary language in class 4, will good learning take place? If yes, okay, most of you understand. Very good learning will not take place. Second, if a teacher uses easy language that is slightly above the current level of the students, very good learning will take place. Yes, very good learning will take place. Very good. And this is what I wanted to know. So, come to the level of the students, not just in vocabulary and sentences, but also in the experience of the world also, because experience of the world of your learners is not as wide as yours. Therefore, try to build their experience of the world slowly and patiently. Right. Then there is natural order hypothesis. In fact, natural order hypothesis could be a little above. No problem. I am going to explain this. What is natural order hypothesis? This can also help the teachers in a very effective way. Linguists are of the opinion, in fact, in many researches also it has been proved that language is learnt in a certain order. There is a certain preset natural order of acquiring various linguistic elements. And a good teacher always plans the lessons in that way. Those things which are normally learnt first are taught first. And in this way, if you go with the natural order of language acquisition, then learning becomes easy. For instance, you must have noticed that your students learn continuous tense first and indefinite tense later. Normally, use of ing and all. Because you see, uh, talking about now and here is our basic instinct. Talk about current situation, about now and here, because you see the examples are also there, and it can be demonstrated in a very nice way. Therefore, present continuous tense comes before other aspects of tenses, right? Then conditional sentences, hypothetical sentences, causative sentence structures, passive voice and all, they occur later actually. They come later. Reason being, uh, hypothetical use of language, imaginary use of language, talking about distant time, uh, requires cognitive maturity, right? And that cognitive maturity is built when symbolic system develops in the minds of the students. Therefore, they initially talk about now and here, what is present in the context in a better way, and then slowly and slowly they become able to talk about imaginary things and hypothetical situations and suppositions and all, right? So, uh, as a teachers of English, we should know this natural order of language acquisition, and we should present our elements in that way only, so that easy learning takes place and there is a natural progression in language learning. So, this is natural order hypothesis. I think you understood. Now, the last hypothesis and my favorite, That is sixth hypothesis, Krashen's sixth hypothesis. Many times, people talk about Krashen's five hypothesis. They do not talk about Krashen's sixth hypothesis. But Krashen's sixth hypothesis is my favorite one. And I totally agree, in fact, with this particular hypothesis. Uh, that is reading hypothesis. Reading hypothesis. This hypothesis says create opportunities for reading. The more the reading, the better the learning of language. And I totally agree. In fact, what happens? There cannot be any output without input. Quality input is required for quality output. And the best quality input is possible by reading. So if your students get sufficient opportunity of reading, then naturally their language will be refined and they will acquire not only vocabulary but intuitively they develop the sense of grammar as well and social norms of using language as well. Therefore, motivate your students to consume a lot of written literature and refine their language. It is very important. In fact, I have calculated a rough number of pages, how much they are required to consume to become proficient users of language. And in my opinion, if your learners acquire 10,000 pages of written literature without much teaching, with very limited training, they can become proficient users of language. They can develop proficiency of language just by consuming 10,000 pages. Of course, comprehensive input. Comprehensive input means they should start from easy books and go to slowly go to difficult books. Starting from NCERT is the best idea. Starting from lower level NCERT of different subjects, ये भी गलत भ्रांति है कि भैया इंग्लिश बुक से ही पढ़ी जाती है. In fact, English is taught as a subject as if it is a content subject like history and science. So much so that ma'am goes to the class and writes a question on the board. Where did Mohan go in the evening? Mohan went to the river bank in the evening. Now she wants to see that exact answer in the examination. If it is slightly here and there, then marks are cut, marks are deducted. Mohan went to the river bank in the evening. Is this a scientific fact or a historical fact? Why should your students be forced to memorize it? Suppose if your student writes, Mohan went to the garden in the evening. He used the subject correctly, second form of the verb correctly, put your phrases in proper places and showed linguistic competence. Why should he get 0? Right? Particularly when this is not a scientific fact. So stop teaching English language as a content subject as history or mathematics. Right? I would say this. Focus on language actually. Creativity of the students should be in focus. Further, there is again a rule, Teachers will ask questions, students will give answers. Why so? Questions are as important parts of language as answers. You always teach them answers, writing answers. You never teach them how to ask questions. You give them a passage and give them questions and say answer these questions. Why can't you give them a passage and say create 5 questions out of this passage? So when they create questions out of the passage, I think they will use their analytical brain. They will read it, they will develop comprehension, and then only they will create questions. You should also develop a sense in your students. Say questions can be of different types. Factual questions that seek factual information normally start with which and what. Then logical questions that start with why. Then process oriented questions that start with how. Then higher order thinking questions that start what if, so what, right? So why can't you give this type of questions also in your class? Create 5 factual questions from the given passage. It means the question is starting with what and which. Hmm? So similarly, I mean, you can engage your students in meaningful activities, not just by writing certain answers on the board and asking your students to memorize, but actually engaging them with the text uh, in many different ways that is required, in fact, right? I hope if you agree with me, please give thumbs up. Most of the teachers agree with me in this matter that a passage can be given and your students can be asked to create questions out of it, not just always answers, right? Because questions are as important part of language as answers are. So these are 6 hypotheses. In today's class, I talked about many different things. I started my class with the status of English in our country, how English functions as a associate official language, how it opens windows to the world, how it is a library language, and how it is a language of opportunity in our country, how it enjoys the language of the as the second language in our country. Then I talked about certain things, and mainly I focused on 6 hypotheses of creation. In this lesson, I talked about 6 hypotheses of creation. The first hypothesis is acquisition learning hypothesis, where I told you that acquisition is a subconscious process, learning is a conscious process. Then came monitor hypothesis. Monitor hypothesis actually learned system develops a monitor in your mind, and monitor functions as an editor that auto corrects your mistakes. I also talked about difference between mistake and error. And then I went through critical period hypothesis and talked about effective filter hypothesis. Effective filter hypothesis, I told that you should invest all your efforts in reducing fears, inhibitions, hesitations in your students, and you should create a conducive, open environment that motivates your students to come up with language. And then input hypothesis, where I talked about comprehensive input is required for good learning. And then I talked about natural order hypothesis, and finally I concluded my talk with reading hypothesis, where I said better opportunities of reading should be created. यहाँ पे फनी चीज़ है, वो भी बता दूँ. देखिए भाई, सिस्टम ऐसा है हमारे क्लास में. Certain faces teacher likes, they sit in the front row. Some shiny faces, nice uniform, right? Talkative, smiling faces sit in the front benches. And every single day, the teacher reaches the class, asks students, Rahul, you stand up, read first paragraph. Rahul stands up, reads first paragraph. All 49 students sitting, they never get and they will never get an opportunity to read in the class. Therefore, it happens that students do not complete even their 60-page textbook reading in the entire year. And this is how bad learners are created and bad learning environment is created. In fact, we will have to think a plan of creating reading assignments, of creating better opportunities where students actually get an opportunity to read. If your class is of say 50 minutes, can you create a slot of 10 minutes reading where all students silently read and you also read? You just don't monitor, but you also read, because leading by example is the best way of leading the class, right? So reading should be emphasized, reading assignments should be given, right? Your textbooks are not rule books, they are not constitutions or bibles. Actually, your textbooks are just the tools to engage your students with. The ultimate purpose is curricular goals and competencies that you want to develop in your students. Therefore, make your students better readers, motivate them to read, create opportunities to read, create reading assignments, discussion forums and all, and have a sympathetic approachable attitude for your students. Thank you so much for your rapt attention and active engagement. If you
Thank you
have
so much, sir.
any questions,
Yeah.
you can present it.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I have noted down all the questions in the Word file. I'll just share my screen and then we can move on to QA session.
Yeah, I think Vidhi, you can share one or two important questions in the beginning. Uh,
Okay.
Questions which are common, you can share those questions because we'll be able to listen to you. Reading
Okay.
is uh,
All right. Then I'll read out the question, sir. Uh, sir, the first question is by Dwaipayan Roy. Can adults acquire a language purely through immersion without ever using conscious learning?
okay. Dopine Roy sir, your question is really very interesting. In fact, motivation plays a very important role in that. What is the motivation? For example, when people go to, say, Arab countries for job purposes, adult people go, then they learn the language Arabic. Their motivation is just instrumental motivation. They want to get certain works done in the target language, that is Arabic. They want to be able to hail a taxi, to purchase vegetables, to learn a few things so that they can just do their daily works. But the very moment they become capable of carrying means doing these things, their instrumental function is served. They stop learning. They stop learning at all, and their language fossilizes. They never improve them. Even after staying 10 years in Saudi Arabia, they do not become native speakers of Arabic language because their motivation was just instrumental motivation. They wanted to get a certain things done in Arabic. They did not have very intrinsic or very deep motivation. Therefore, they stopped learning. Here, I would say by immersion, certainly language can be learnt, but it has been observed that in adult learners, just immersion is not important. If they have motivation that goes beyond instrumental functions, if they have motivation for language and appreciation for its culture and positive attitude towards its speakers, and if they have motivation of integration in society, then certainly their language will be better and they will be able to acquire language by immersion. Immersion is the best way of learning. There's no doubt about it because you see, automatically you get exposure of language all the time. You get exposure of language in social interaction. So, communicative competence also you develop. So, immersion is certainly very important. But motivation for what purpose you want to learn that language, that also plays a very important role. I hope I try to answer your question, Mr. Depai. You
Thank you so much, sir.
Another question is, how can a speaker actually use the monitor in real time conversation without pausing the flow of speech?
without pausing a flow of speech, all great speakers are slow speakers. Those who speak slowly with pauses, they are able to use their monitor in real time because they can correct their response as they go. All serious speakers, those who have high stake topics, those who hold responsible position, whose words matter a lot, they are and they should be slow speakers. One of the slowest speakers I know, Atal Bihari Vajpayee ji, was considered one of the greatest speakers in our country. Therefore, having this notion that very fast paced speech is good, slow paced speech is not good, is a faulty notion actually. Moderate pace, even slow pace, with proper pauses, gives you an opportunity of using your monitor in a better way and your audience time to consume your idea and process it and react according to your wishes. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Moving on to another question. It is by Amar Singh. Kindly annotate on Delheim's communicative competence, the speaking mnemonic, and ethnopoetics. And what are the core principles of Suggestopedia and Desuggestopedia?
I think, Mr. Amar Singh ji, you have asked a very big question and two questions combined.
Yes, sir.
Uh,
It's actually two
you already
questions.
you already know the answer because the way you ask the question, I understand you have very deep understanding of the subject. Therefore, I would advise the sage audience here that they should note down this point. That is Delheim's communicative competence. In fact, four, five types of competences are there, like socio-linguistic competence, grammatical, structural competence, then pragmatic competence, and they should learn the difference between them. Knowledge is all available. Uh, they should note down these terms and they should elaborate this. They should find the elaboration, right? This is not the platform for, no, I'll not get opportunity of having one more lecture. you know. Then you asked the second question, that was about.
So, the core principles of Suggestopedia and Desuggestopedia.
And the Suggestopedia core principles I talked, the Suggestopedia or the Suggestopedia, actually the two names of the same psychological method of language teaching. They focus on psychological conditioning of their learners by giving positive input, by giving positive psychological they try to create a positive attitude of the students, not just about language, but also about the native speakers about that language. The learner should have positive attitude towards the target culture. They should have positive attitude towards teacher. They should have positive attitude and curiosity about how interesting and easy the language is, and then they become better prepared to learn this language. And due to this reason only in Suggestopedia class you see very comfortable class is set and the teacher is very approachable, who prefers shaking hand rather than taking a good morning or good evening, right? So actually the difference is in teacher's role, student's role, and the place also, and the overall conduct of the class. That is totally motivational, and the teacher is totally approachable. Any mistake of the student is not frowned upon, and total supportive environment and peer learning is there. They are the core principles. Thank you.
The another question, sir, is by Debanjan. What is your opinion on school promoting a separate grammar book focused solely on rules as opposed to integrating grammar learning through literature, stories, and meaningful contexts?
Uh, you asked, in fact, extremely difficult question for me, an extremely difficult question, actually, right? This question seems quite easy, but is actually very difficult, right? The fact remains,
Right.
just by a piece of literature, you cannot teach all grammar. With a piece of a literature, you can teach only what samples are present there, right? Say if that piece of literature presents samples of simple present tense, it presents sample of do not, but it doesn't have does not, then you will have to go to rules only. Finally, you can start from a piece of literature, but ultimately you have to go to rules and examples. Otherwise, you will leave the topic incomplete. Here, I would say take the golden path, that is the middle path, right? Combine rule based grammar along with text based grammar, teaching grammar to literature and using some additional rules to go beyond the text also. A combination will be required. Otherwise, what will happen? You will give them impression of teaching grammar, but you will turn up teaching no grammar at all, right? This is what my personal opinion is. This is not institutional take. Let me tell you, the institutional take is that we should always teach in context, teach grammar in context only. But the practical thing is, those who are the teachers of grammar, they know it very well. The practical thing is, Your small lesson presents samples. Say there is a story, it presents all samples of past indefinite tense. Even in past indefinite tense, not all structures are present there of all aspects, right? So what will you do? Either you will leave just all those important aspects which are not present there, right? So my advice here would be start from the text, right? Start from the context and from the text, and start with the examples that are there in the text, and then we should go beyond the text also, so that a sense of completion comes in our lessons. This is the most practical approach, right? Only then some significant grammar lessons can be given. Otherwise very significant grammar lessons will not be given. देखिए, सच तो ये है, when you say analyze the sentences, analyze grammar in this text and all, basically your students are not linguists. Sometimes we make a mistake supposing they are already linguists, they know how to analyze language, they know all grammar, and then we presuppose and then we go and analyze it. Actually, this is not the case. The case is they know nothing, right? Your students know nothing. You have to do a lot of hand holding. You have to tell them how to analyze it and what features are there, what characteristics are there, what definitions are there, and you will also use meta language, proper meta language. Only then analysis is possible. You see, एक चीज और मैं बताऊं. Can you talk about grammar without using meta language? No. Because first meta language is required. Meta language is actually defining terminology. Defining terminology means they should know what is noun, what is adjective, what is adverb, what is noun phrase, what is verb phrase, what is predicate, what is subject, what is no. So how can you teach with the help of the text? You will have to go to rule and examples for teaching this meta language. So basically, when you say just by teaching grammar in context you can teach, I do not agree. I say start from the text. Start from the text. Start from the examples from the text. Analyze the text and then go beyond the text and complete the topic with examples that are relevant in social context, right? So not just text, but social context is important, and we should always go in our lessons to the social context to give a complete sense to our lesson, right? I hope I could make sense out of it.
Uh, yes, sir, definitely. Another question is by Priyadarshini. In case of using comfortable language, will we be able to attain the target?
I think Priyadarshini is a new teacher then, young teacher, right? Priyadarshini, when you say can just by using easy language can we achieve our target? I think what you mean by achieving target is uh, that whether your students will be able to use ornate literary language if you keep using very easy language. Here I would like to say you one thing, I would like to say one thing, and that is, see, knowing language is one thing. Sharing language, teaching language is a totally different thing. A very knowledgeable teacher is not essentially a very effective teacher. In fact, sometimes more information and extreme proficiency in language becomes a hurdle because you are not convinced that actually easy structures, simple vocabulary, slow pace can help the students. You have been a very brilliant student, so you never required any explanation or assistance from your teachers. You understood each and everything. Now you expect the same from your students. Many of your students are slow learners, many are fast learners, many are struggling with language, right? Therefore, a good teacher is one who always finds the middle path. He or she gives some matter that is for the brilliant students in the class, say 10% of the time is invested, and 90% of the time is invested for the mediocres, right? Because it is the mediocres who need your help the most, right? So I would say do not hesitate in coming to the level of the students. Slow pace, shorter sentences, and carefully calculated vocabulary that is dropped. When you drop a new term, always hammer it, fix it in the minds of the students by repeating it in many different ways, putting it in context so that new vocabulary reaches them. When you use a new structure, use slow pace, use a pattern of similar structures in 2 3 sentences so that it settles in the minds of your students. When students struggle with using a certain structure, in place of saying you are incorrect, always give a parallel correct structure with slow pace, in slow pace with emphasis on certain points where they are making mistakes. So I think this can help you, and do not, think that if you do not use a very ornate and literary language with your student, they'll not learn it. Not exactly like this. Slowly and slowly, you see, uh, a psychological bridge is built between the students and the teachers. You understand what your students are understanding. You know what they want to ask. In fact, हमारा वाईफाई जब एक टीचर का एक्टिव होता है ना, 50 स्टूडेंट क्लास में बैठे होते हैं, कौन क्या प्रश्न पूछना चाह रहा है, कौन क्या नहीं पूछना चाह रहा है, किसको समझ आ रहा है, किसको नहीं, एक अच्छा टीचर का वाईफाई ये सब कैच कर रहा होता है, राइट? एंड इवन विदाउट आस्किंग, many times you answer your questions even when they hesitate in asking you certain explanation, you explain because you are psychologically connected to the network of the brains of students. As an experienced teacher, you know what one wants to ask and why they want to ask that, and you focus there. Therefore, be a good teacher. Here I would like to cite one example. एक टीचर अपने रिटायरमेंट स्पीच में बोला, throughout my life I have been teaching syllabus. Only last year I started teaching students, and alas, I am retiring now. So do not teach just the syllabus, right? Teach your student. Go to the level of the students, be sympathetic, connect to them psychologically, and have a motivation to teach them. देखिए, जिसको आशीर्वाद गुरु देना चाहता है ना, उसको दे ही देता है. उसकी आंखों से, उसकी वाणी से, उसकी वेरी प्रेजेंस से जो है वो आशीर्वाद, भाषा का, शिक्षा का आशीर्वाद भी टपकता है, राइट? So once you are psychologically convinced to teach a student and you have motivation, no method is required, my dear. You will teach them anyhow, right? Therefore, will to teach is required. Motivation to teach is required. Psychological bridging is required. Connection is required. And then automatically you will understand what's the need of your students. And all experienced teachers will agree with me on this point, I think. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. Moving on to the last two questions. Can monitor prevent a learner from speaking confidently?
Can monitor prevent a learner from speaking confidently?
Yes,
Ignorance is a bliss. So if you do not know grammar, don't care about grammar, then you keep talking pat, whatever you want to do. And you say it is confident to speak. No, it is not confident speaking. It is not educated speech, right? So when we talk about language, actually we talk about educated language, right? Educated language means that should be grammatically correct and it should have at least a basic level of acceptability, right? It should not have ambiguity. It should not have grammatical blunders. Mistakes are okay, but it should not have grammatical blunders, right? Therefore, I won't say we can totally ignore learning and the function of monitor. Function of monitor is very much there. We should be careful about grammar, but we should not have a lot of hesitation. We should not put a lot of pressure on our students about rules of grammar and all, and we should not stop them and correct when they are speaking. Let them speak. Even when they are making mistakes, don't stop them in the middle. But yeah, later on by your parallel examples, you can always give positive input. You can always correct them, right? Sometimes even personal counseling may be required. Sometimes parallel sentences will help. Sometimes, intelligent teachers have many ways of correcting, even without publicly insulting, right?
Uh, yes, sir. Moving on to the last question. It is by Sumit Kaur. How can we improve the proficiency level of the students of grade 12, assuming non supportive home environment as regards to English language learning?
Hmm. My single one line answer would be reading hypothesis, right? Motivate them to consume a lot of literature, a lot of material, written material, and they will automatically acquire language. Initially, even those texts that they don't understand, they will start understanding them, and their language will improve. Motivate them to read.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much for all your answers. Now, as per our ritual, we used to call one candidate to give the feedback and the vote of thanks for this session. And for the same, I would like to call Debanjan Chakrabarti. Mr. Debanjan, are you there in the class?
Yes, ma'am, I'm there. Am I audible?
Yeah. Yes, sir, you are. Can you please switch on your camera?
Right now, I'm okay. Let me just try. Am I visible?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir, you are.
Okay.
Please,
Thank
sir.
you, sir. Thank
Your
you for
feedback.
the enriching experience, and it was really fun listening to you, sir. Okay, and the information we got, information I've noted down regarding all the hypotheses that you mentioned
Vidhi,
about
one
hyperduality.
minute, Devanjanji, please switch off your
Yes, sir.
video
Yes, sir.
because you are in a low network area. And yeah, now you speak because you're not audible properly. Please speak now.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir, for the enriching session, and sir, for all the hypotheses that you mentioned. It was really nice knowing about them. We had already learned it in my when I was doing my B.Ed, so it was again like a revision. So thank you, sir, for the class. Thank you, sir.
Thank you so much, Mr. Debanjan. And sir, on behalf of everyone, on behalf of Dr. Meheto and the entire CELE team and all the participants who have joined us today, I would like to formally thank you for such an inspiring and engaging session. We look forward to have more such sessions with you, sir. Thank you so much.
Right.
Thank you.
Vidhi, just one note. I Yes,
Yes, sir.
just
So,
one note. I have
Ji, thank
Yes,
you
yes,
very
yes.
much. That opportunity.
I just like to add one note. The candidates, you must have seen the difference between previous classes and this class. There was no PowerPoint. Still, the class was so rooted to your classroom level. And though at one side there was theory in the form of hypotheses, it was so much rooted to the classroom that how you can use those theories to improve the language learning of the candidates. And this will be further more evident as to why we have kept two books on language learning. Because most of us are literature students, and as sir in one of the classes says, you go and pour out your ego, come with a collar turned, up that I have taught very good English, but whether it was really learned or not. So how you can make a proper learning classroom, all that is by Dr. Braj Mohan sir's simple and easy way of explaining how you can take it to the classroom level. So thank you very much. I'd like to just add one more thing that sir is also coordinating the program. He has agreed. He is so busy and has so much experience. He agreed that he'll be coordinating the program from Delhi center. So you'll get more chance and more exposure if you if we meet at when we meet at Delhi center, we can have more contact, face to face learning as well. So thank you very much, sir, for having such an insightful and rooted to teachers' ground classroom experience lesson. Uh, Thank you very much.
Sir, can I say something?
Yeah, Preeti, please.
Yes.
Good morning, sir. Good morning, Brajmo, sir. Actually, I really want to thank you for this engaging and enrichment session. Sir, my notebook is totally loaded with all the notes which you just provided us. And today in this session, I learned a lot of new things which I was not actually having in my vocabulary. Some new words like self-hypnotism and all the difference between error and mistakes. And thank you so much. I am looking forward to meet you if there would be an interactive session in Delhi Center. Mehta sir, would it be there in Delhi?
Uh, Brother says it is his jurisdiction now. I think most likely we are planning on that.
Oh, thank you so much, sir, because we are from Delhi and we would really be very grateful if it would happen in Delhi.
Thank you. So, thank you, sir.
Okay,
You
thank
see that
thank
though the student has come less, but we have 217 and quite often 170 teachers mostly joined. When today we had peak of 165 candidates. So, a good number is there, and I hope we, through these tiny efforts, we are trying to the concern that you raised that teachers are not trained properly. So even the policy raised that concern. So through these tiny efforts, we are trying to bridge the gap. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you. Bye bye.
Have a nice day. Bye.